Hello there and welcome to my Arty Corner here on YouTube. My name's Angela Porter, and amongst other things I love drawing, and I particularly love pattern and stylised forms, and I draw inspiration from nature, from architecture, from science, from all kinds of things. And of course I'm quite interested in Zentangle, perhaps not the Zentangle method itself, but the patterns that are there and how you can produce step outs to help others draw them. And of course it's October. Today is the 24th of October, Monday the 24th of October as I'm recording this. So it's day 24 of Inktober, but I'm going to do 2 days because I know that tomorrow I'm unlikely to be able to do a video. So you get 2 days in one. So it gives you a chance to catch up with things. So before I start though, I'm just going to say thank you ever so much to each and every one of you who subscribe to the channel. I'm very appreciative of you, and I'm just fiddling with cameras and things to get this exactly where I want it so I'm comfortable drawing. There we are. Should do this first, Angela. And no, because that wouldn't be me, would it? So I'm very appreciative if you've subscribed to the channel, left thumbs up, left comments, suggestions, feedback, all of that kind of thing, and are sharing your art with me on various social platforms, although it can be difficult to find me, possibly. I don't know. But yeah, so thank you ever so much. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. It doesn't cost you a penny. All it does is it shows you want to follow my channel, that you like what I'm doing, and I appreciate that all very much. Okay, so what I've got here, this is a piece of paper that I think is now about 5 inches by 7 inches. It is actually marker paper, because who knows, I may actually use some markers on this. But I'm going to combine 2 patterns, and I've got the thoughts in my head for this. For today, day 24, the Zentangle pattern, or the Tangle pattern for today, is Hollibaugh by Zentangle themselves, and it's a very simple, very graphic pattern. And you can draw it with straight lines, and perhaps I'll start on this side with the straightish lines. My hands are really wobbly. And you start by drawing one, and then the next one you draw in, you go underneath that one, so we're creating like a pile of planks, if you will. The other thing, what I will do is I'm going to come back with a finer pen than this one. And then you just add another one somewhere. I think the trick with this is not to overthink it or try to manage it as such. And I'm varying the width of these planks because, to be honest with you, trying to keep them all the same width is going to be a bit of a pain for me today. And I'm going to have one that comes... So I've got an awkward shape here, but paper, but it's fine. It works no matter what. Because I did want to... So I've put another straight one in here. And I'm drawing these chunky for a reason, because I'm going to use it like a grid, a reticulum, as they call it, or Zentangle call it, and fill both the... Ooh, that's an interesting one. Now I'm beginning to curve these, aren't I? So I'm going to carry this one on over here because it would. And I think I'll curve on the inside of this arc a little bit. And I think this one's actually going to spread out on that side because it can. So I like curvy ones because everything I do is mostly curvy. Even when I do straight lines, it looks curvy. But as I said, it's best not to overthink it and try and plan this out. I found it to be the case anyway, because I end up then with a right kerfuffle because it's not working out as I wanted it to. So, and it's not a pattern I use terribly often, but I do use it from time to time to fill in spaces. because it is small spaces even, because the way that you can vary the width of these planks and vary them as well in terms of what embellishments you put on them and so on. So I just want to fit one more in, and I am going to make it a curved one because it will fit in just that bit better for me. There. And perhaps here I'll have it narrowing this way. So nothing says that the lines have to be parallel. And I'm going to go around here, and I'm actually going to join or fill in. Not fill in. I'm joining the negative. I'm sort of like putting a boundary around the negative space between the Hollibaughs, the empty space that's there. And yeah, I did draw my border in here with pencil. But I am drawing these lines freehand. The pencil will disappear, especially as I know it's not a Zentangle thing. You know, there's no erasers in Zentangle. But I use erasers an awful lot in art because, well, I often draw things in sketch form. So that's the start of my Hollibaugh. I'm going to get a finer pen. I did have a finer one here. Do you think I can find it now? I think this one may be just a bit finer. So I'm going to put auras on the inside of these lines. And they sort of like finish here, but I'm going to give them a little bit of a bump out where they come to the edge of the page. I'm trying to keep them pretty consistent widths on both sides. But I just like, I need this because I know what comes next. Well, I know what I want to do next. And I like these, I like to define shapes in this kind of way and spaces and separate one pattern from another. It's just oops, that's a very wobbly one. It's just my kind of aesthetic, so of course you can choose to do this or not, because all that I show you is a suggestion. And I share my thought processes and why I do things, why I like particular things. But we're all individual, and that is a wonderful thing. Today my hand is distinctly wobbly. I wasn't too well yesterday. I had a raging headache. I had hot flushes or sweats, you know, high temperature and chills and so on. But I had my flu vaccination on Saturday. And these were the side effects of it. I've never had side effects from the flu jab before, but I have this year, which is fine. It doesn't put me off having it because flu is pretty grim. And I also have asthma and a couple of other health conditions that having flu or a serious bout of flu would not be good for me. So, and I'm a scientist. And so I'm, you know, I don't follow science, I don't believe in science, I trust science because it's a body of facts and evidence, but it's my choice. So I wasn't very well yesterday, and it hit me in my digestive system as well. All common side effects of the flu jab. And of course today I'm feeling better, but I'm just still a bit tired from it, even though I slept for quite a long time last night, which surprised me. So I think my hand may be a little bit wobbly due to that I haven't done any drawing yet this morning. But I'm happy to have wobbly lines. It adds some interest to them, and These are drawn by me. I'm a human, not a machine per se. It started to rain again. I was hoping to take some time out today, while I'm still recovering, to go out and get some photographs of the autumn colours, because they are absolutely beautiful. So that is my Hollibaugh, and I've got all these lovely big spaces left. And there is a reason I want these lovely big spaces, because this is the pattern for day 24. You can carry on filling all these spaces in, adding more and more Hollibaughs. They don't all have to sort of like finish at the edge, because they'll finish behind each other and what have you. But because I'm doing two patterns together, I wanted to leave some nice big spaces here for the pattern for day 25, which is Kwazeela, and it's a leafy pattern by Eni Oken. And it's Eni Oken is a CZT. She does very, very graphic, very dimensional, very ornate kinds of work in Zentangle. And I've liked her work for a long time. Although I can draw inspiration from it, but I find that I've already done that kind of thing. It's kind of my style, sort of. She does it in her own way. There are things she does that I don't, and that's fine. We're all very different. But this is a leaf pattern, and it is based on two little teardrop shapes. One that's long and thin, and I will zoom in for you, because the Hollibaughs are big and sweeping, and this is going to be a smaller pattern. I'll try to remember to check I'm still on the screen. And then the other one is drawn starting from the same place, but it's broader and smaller. So we get this kind of shape. Perhaps I could have swept that up a little bit, but it is what it is. And then the next step is just to aura this. Now she puts a row of dots down there, so I'll do that. And then you don't go around here with the aura. You start up here and you kind of create this kind of shape. So it's sort of a weird S. It's almost like the top of this S has been cut off and the bottom of this one is going very big. So we have this. I'm just going to add some line weight. I'm going to add some line weight here. I'm also going to add line weight inside these to give some shadow, and also on the outside. And when I add line weight, I can also adjust my lines and tidy them up if I want to, or if I'm able to. The other thing she does is she uses contour lines to add some shadow, and I may very well do that if I can find that fine pen. The one I used for the insides, oh excuse me, I've still got paint on my nails. I thought I'd scrubbed it all off. It's fine. I used a 0.25 for these, and I'm using a 0.1 for this. Okay, so we're going to put some shadow in here, tiny little lines like that, and then there's going to be some lines in here just to add some shadow, and then in this one too. Now this is a Copic multi-liner SP. They're meant to work with alcohol markers. They're waterproof and so on, so you can use them with watercolours and what have you. And I've bought them because you can see they're in an aluminium barrel on top, and you have this here will take you pull it out, you've got you can refill it with ink when the ink runs out, and the tips you can actually buy new tips for them. quite easily. So I'm going to put another one here. Slightly different shape, but then as it's leaf based, it's going to be, isn't it? So let's go down, up and round. And we get this going on. So I'm going to put the shadows here, here. I'm going to thicken that line and perhaps this a little bit there. And then I'll use this to add some shading. So I'll fill this space with these, and then we'll have a look and see if I can come up with some variations of this in some of the other spaces. Don't know if you notice, my lines aren't coming right to the end. They're not joining up on the other side. I'm leaving some space there to suggest there's some light getting in. And that helps with that suggestion again of highlight and shadow. So these are great for piling one on top of another and nesting in each other. And the bigger you do them, the quicker they fill the space up. So I'm just going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do all of these, this kind of line weight, and I'll fill this space in then. So this one would have fitted behind that. So how do I want to do the next ones? Let's have one, yes, let's have one growing here. And you can see they don't quite start at the same place, but I suspect this is going to work no matter how you make them fit the space that's available. So here I've got quite a small space then. I think I'm going to do this with a lot of these spaces. So I'm going to fill them in with black. So here I'm going to have the shadow up here. For this one up and around here as well. This is a Eni Oken pen, and they're described as ever fine. It's a 0.4 nib, hard plastic nib, and they feel very velvety when you draw with them. I can't describe it in any other way, but they have a lovely velvety kind of friction to them. And I'm rather partial to them, to be honest. And if they do keep their ever fine points, then they could be another pen that comes into my arsenal of pens, because I do have quite a collection of them. Now I'm going to fill these spaces. I said I was going to fill them with black, so I'm going to just do these here. Because I think the black helps these leaves to stand out. And what I may do later on is I may very well add some white dots to these black spaces so it looks like we've got a night sky here. Okay, I need to add some line weight to these as well. There would be a nicer curve, and inside I'm also going to add line weight at the top, perhaps there. I'm not being consistent where I put the thick lines, and I will show you how I'm going to add shadow to them. Excuse my arm and things, I'm having slurps of tea while I'm doing this. I'm quite dehydrated today after my upset tum yesterday. I drank loads, but ooh, I've got both of them quite big, and I think that's fine as well. Because no matter how we try and recreate somebody else's work or pattern, you never quite do it exactly the same unless you're able to copy like a camera, I suppose, or a scanner. Then you're always going to have your stamp on it. And the word is stamp, I think. You'll always be you. And I think the trick about finding your style or your artistic voice is embracing that style that is you and recognising, well, this is me. This is how I draw it. Okay, I'm going to go with that. I'm still struggling in some ways. I do have an artistic voice. I have a couple of them really. But I still struggle at times because I don't really settle on one or just a couple of them. I'm forever exploring and trying new things out. I think one of the things that will become one of my voices very strongly, it's always been there, but it's kind of accepting it and settling to it. And that's the hard thing, is accepting it, especially when you look at other people's work and you compare your work with others. And I do that in my weak moments, shall we say, in times when I'm just not feeling confident about myself, or I'm trying something new and different, and I see something and I go, oh, mine's really rubbish, isn't it? And I say that to myself even now. But the trick is not to compare your work to anybody else's. It's take inspiration from other people's work, by all means. But recognise that you're going to draw things in your own way. So your muscles won't, the muscles that control your pen won't work the same way as they work with me. Your hand-eye coordination won't work in the same fashion as it does for me. Your aesthetics won't be the same as mine would be. You might not like these dark black spaces that I've used in between these sections, for example. I like that very graphic nature, especially as Hollibaugh is a very graphic kind of pattern when it's done. But I think that, you'll use your pen differently, you'll hold your pen differently to me. You'll have a different amount of shakiness or steadiness of hand as you draw. And that shakiness is a good thing. I embraced it today because my hand is shaky. And, I recognise that what I'm doing here is I'm drawing all of these by hand, which means there is going to be some evenness. It varies from day to day how much there is. Some days my drawing hand is a bit steadier than other days. And to some of you, you'll say, I don't know what you're complaining about because it looks like you've got a very steady hand today. But I can see the difference and I know the difference in myself. But it all comes down to practice as well. I've been drawing just about daily, and I would say 99 point something % daily for most probably all of my life in one form or another, whether it's been scientific illustration or diagrams rather, or whether it's been drawing for fun now or art or business as I do now. And that makes a difference as well, I think, is that you hone those skills and those drawing skills in the way that a sportsman would practice the skill with which they, kick a football or throw a rugby ball or, play tennis or whatever their particular, sport is. To become good at something, to improve, to create things in the way you'd like to create them, does take a lot of practice. Nobody was born out of the womb being able to draw wonderfully with a pencil, not even the greats that we look at. It's all time and practice. And practice not just with drawing, but observing things, looking at things, thinking in a different way. Because when I draw, if I draw from either a photograph I've taken or some reference, or from, sitting in front of some flowers or some architecture, I can see, or even life studies, unclothed humans, which I've done in the past, then I'm not thinking of them in terms of I'm drawing a flower. I'm looking at them, and in my mind I'm taking them apart to, okay, there's a shape here. The middle of it is this kind of shape. And it might be a circle, it might be a kind of oval. And I'll start there. And then I'll look, well, this particular part here is kind of like a triangle, but it's kind of more rounded, or flatter on the edge. Okay, then, let me do that. And so it kind of, you think about things in a different way. And I think that's an important skill or thing to try, because when we have in our head an image of what a flower should be like probably from some of our early schooling, where we're told this is how you draw a flower. And it's a very stylised, very simple kind of thing, a circular centre with some petals around it. And that's how we tend to draw flowers for an awful long time. It's how we draw flowers when we doodle aimlessly, on the phone, or in a boring meeting. And it's fine, because it's still a drawing of a flower, and they can be very beautiful, they're very lovely. But it doesn't help you. It's what, if you're trying to draw a flower in front of you, your head will say, oh, I'm drawing a flower. Well, this is what a flower looks like. And so the two become sort of combined and enmeshed, I suppose. And so part of this process is overturning everything you learnt about drawing and drawing things and looking at things from a fairly young age, unless you were lucky enough to learn those skills then. As a scientist, that keen observation, looking at things closely, describing what you could see, drawing the shapes you could see. When you drew flowers, and we've been out on a field study, and we'd collected flowers, and you had to bring them back and do reports on the flora in a particular habitat, for example. This is when I was in university. You were expected to include in your reports of that field trip, your findings, all the statistics and everything. You also had to include drawings of all the flowers and plants that you had found. And you had to do these yourselves. It wasn't okay to go and, copy them from a book and put them in. But it wasn't drawing a flower as a whole. It was, but it was drawing the ideal flower from what you could see. So what the centre of it looked like, what the petals looked like, what shapes they were. And you didn't use colour to add colour to the drawing. You'd include that in the written description of the flower to show your identification. But you'd also look at the stamen under microscopes or hand lenses and describe those. You'd look at the pistil, which is the part that the stamen ring, and that's where pollen will land and will travel down the tube to the ovary at the bottom to create seeds. And so you draw that, because the shape of that, the number of them, the same with the shape and the number of petals and the colours and so on, help to identify a particular plant. So I learned those skills through science rather than through art. It was my art lessons when I was in school as a child were very dull and very boring on their main. I spent a whole year drawing my hand, for example, which was, for me, excruciatingly dull and uninteresting, because I'm not interested in drawing people particularly. I prefer to take photographs of people in candid positions. I find life drawing very interesting, because I get to see the architecture of the human body. You get to see the shapes that muscles make when light hits them in a certain way. And it reminds me very much of like the Romanesque or Gothic architecture and so on. And so I look at the human body in that way when I'm in art mode. Otherwise, I'm more interested in candid shots of people. So it's learning how to look at things differently and think about them in a different way. Well, this is how it works for me. It doesn't work for everybody. And I'm not saying I sit there and I spend ages thinking about this and trying to work it out. It happens quite quickly in my mind because it's so familiar to me. But it's the kind of questions, it's sort of like I'll sit and look for a short while and I'll think, okay, then I can see what the basic structure is here. And I'll start with that and a quick pencil sketch often of where the overall shape of the flower is, where the centre is, dividing that space up into the petals, you know, the number of petals and so on, where they are, and then starting to build it out from there. But it's good fun. Okay, so this is, to go back to this is Kwazeela in the form that is in the, I'll put the step outs to both Hollibaugh and Kwazeela in the description box below. So this is the form that's there with Eni Oken's step out. But I think we can do this in a different way. And I'm going to start up here. So instead of drawing rounded shapes, let's go for typically pointed leaf shapes. And we're going to aura them in the same kind of way, except I'm going to add a little bit of a dip, a bigger dip here to mirror, I suppose, the shapes of these particular leaves. There we go. And so we can, I'm going to start in the middle here. I'm going to have a long thin one on one side and a shorter, broader one on the other. And then I'm going to aura them. The same kind of way with the dots because I like that. Then down, up and around in that kind of way. I'm going to thicken the lines to the bottom and the left. Now I've worked out that if I'm going to fill the space in between with black, I don't really need to do the outsides, but I am just for, you know, because I can. I'm going to fit one in here, like so. So I start to fill this space in. So like so. And I'm just varying where I put the line weight for these leaves, because I will then see what happens or which way I like it. As this is for my sketchbook more than anything else, and that means that nothing has to be perfect here or all identical. It means that I'm using it as an opportunity to explore this pattern and to try different variations out. And it'll go in my sketchbook, and I will show you my sketchbooks, or parts of, not all of my sketchbooks, because that would be a ridiculous thing, and I've got a lot of work that isn't even in sketchbooks. It's sort of loose. But I'll show you what I have in my sketchbooks once Inktober is over and once my latest book is completed, because I do need to get to work on that, but it's not going to happen today. So I suspect I'm going to be asking for an extension on my time because I've not been right for a few days for various reasons. We've had some emotional meltdowns here. And that happens with me from time to time. And it's fine. It is what it is. And that didn't help actually with my not feeling quite so well yesterday. things happen in life and they can be quite triggering at times. I've said before, if you're not aware, I have complex post-traumatic stress. I've healed an awful lot from it over many years through various kinds of therapy. But just before COVID struck, I felt myself ready to leave therapy. I felt I was as good as I was going to get at this time, in the awareness that things are going to crop up in my life that will trigger me still again. But I now have the tools to be able to cope with it. And if I can't, then I know where I can go for some extra sessions and help if necessary. So these things happen. And they're always going to happen. They happen for everybody. But as I said just now, the difference is now I have the tools that will let me cope with these on my own and in my own way and on my own terms. And that's all I want to be able to do. So, but it does take it out of me. And being able to focus and work and be, the problem it gives, one of the big problems is that I'm not satisfied with what I do. And that's not a good thing for me when I'm working, because I'll get frustrated. I end up doing a lot of work that I end up ditching because I don't think it's good enough. And it has an impact then on the rest of my well-being, how I think about myself and so on. So, okay, I'm going to add some details in these in a slightly different way. Where I've got these shadow areas, I'm going to add in some lines, but instead of going in this direction, hopefully if I try zooming in again, see if we can get you here. So along here, I'm going to start close to the tip. I'm going to put a little ball in there. I'm going to aura that. I'm going to draw another ball a little distance away but further down, so I draw a shorter line. And then a third one. So I'm putting my shadows in a different way. Which I quite like. There's more light in these ones than there is in this one. But of course you can change that by not filling in so much, by stopping these lines further up. So I was doing them more like Eni had done in her step out than I was thinking about what I'd like to do. But sometimes you don't know what you want to do until you try something. Now here's my thicker line here, so I want to put these alongside that. So they're on either side of this dividing section, so these ones would end up looking like these leaves are sort of like higher up this side and darker down there, or deeper down there, not darker down. And I think you have to be, as much as I might like to put 3 of these in each leaf section, I think I'm going to have to use my own judgment in places. Like here, I think I could have just done with the 1. I think the 2 is just that little bit squished. And I think what I need to try to do as well, which I haven't done with these, is I've got them going, where they're going under, I'm not getting them going back to the points like I have here. But I think that would be useful, the bottom point of the leaf. And I quite like that little bit of weight here. Now here I've got the line weights at the top and the bottom, so... Oh, not the top and the bottom, just to the top, rather. So perhaps I'll just pop some of these in there, like that. So this one, back to the bottom, to the point. I say the bottom of the leaf. I'm thinking of the bottom is where they connect. And this side, perhaps I'll just put that one in. No, perhaps not. It doesn't feel right. You do need a couple if you can. So that's got those ones have got a lighter area feel than the others. And I am just adjusting some of these shapes here just to have them feeling that they just right. Just so this is a bit of an odd shape here, so I'm just going to adjust that. So I think they're looking really funky and nice. I'll zoom out so you can see them. And I'll zoom out so you can see the, oops, wrong way. Wrong button. There you are, and you can see the hole. And you can see how dense this is going to become if I choose to fill every single one in. What I want to do in one of these sections though here is I'm going to try adding these where I'm exaggerating the length of the thin one and then really making sure that the stouter leaf is quite a bit shorter and wider. And then I'm going to aura these with a simple aura, like so. Simply because I think this will work really quite nicely. Then on this side, I'm going to draw the thinner one on that side, and we can have this chunkier one here. Again, I'm just going to aura around this shape like so. Here, I think I'll have the long thin one going along the edge there, and then the shorter one will tuck behind like that. Black space there, and this here I'm going to add some black there because it will tidy it up. This will need to be black because it will connect. Okay, so let's have a look here, let's have a look. So I've got the thin one there, perhaps that one disappears off over there. So I'll pop the auras in, and in this space around them I'm going to fill it in with black, because that black really does help to bring these leaf shapes out. I think so anyway. So there's one here as well. Okay. I just think I might just fill all of this in black here rather than try and squash parts in, because I don't want them flowing out over there. I've got too big a distance to go and it would end up looking a bit strange. Okay, nearly 3/4 of an hour. I'm going to do one more variation on this. And then what I will do while this is processing and what have you, is I'll get some alcohol markers out and I'll post you a version of it where I've added some colour and so on with it. Now I do want to go inside these leaves and I'm going to add some shadows. And I'm going to be consistent across these because I'm going to do them to the top and right of these leaves as I'm holding my paper on the, still on the surface here. So I can just see what I'm doing. Well, that's the top and that's the right-ish. There we go, that one, and then that will be there. You kind of have to make a judgment call on it, but if they're mostly consistent, they'll all look consistent is my theory. I could be wrong. Okay, and we do need something inside these to to just add some interest here. Now I've got a 0.25 here, so it's a bit thicker than the 01. What I'm going to do for this one is I'm just going to fill around this edge with some tipple on this one, and I'm going to leave a white space that just has a couple of small ones in it, and that is connected to this one. So again, I'm just going to run some tipple down here. I'm going to fill the bottom of the leaf with the tipple, like so. I've made a bit of a mess in places and perhaps just put one there. I'm going to this one, I'm going to add, so just tidy that up. So I've added lines with dots in there. Perhaps this one I can do sort of like a row of crescent moon perhaps, and perhaps with an aura on it. This is the counterpart, so along the darker edge I'm going to pop in some crescent moon going around the corner. Because I've got such a small space, we're not going to get much in the way of auras in around it, but that would work. I'll zoom in so you can see what they look like, even if you didn't see me draw them. This one I'm going to do in quite a different way, because I'm going to start with lines that are very close together at the base, and then I'm going to gradually make them further apart, and I'll actually fill the base of that leaf in with some black. In fact, this one can go all the way up there with black. And then I'm just going to start here with lines very, very close together, and I'll start to just move them further and further apart. And I've curved those lines so it gives that feeling that we're curving and coming closer and further away, because they are getting closer together towards the end here again. So I'm using that. These ones here, I haven't put any weight on them. You can see they're there. And I think this one I'll just pop these in again, just to define the lines that are there. So lots of ideas going on there. The other thing I wanted to do, and I'm going to use my finer. I said I was going to do, what I was going to do was going to add patterns to the inside of the Hollibaugh, but I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm going to leave these exactly as they are. I really do think so. What I might do though is in these smaller sections is pop in a version of these that just fills these sections up. Like so. And perhaps here I can do the same. This is a good one because here I've got a lovely long space here where I can fit one in. And then I've got this section there. I can do the aura around it. And I can then fill these in with black again. Oh, so try to pick the paper up to move it round a bit. Okay, and then I do want to, there, that's better. This one can actually go down a little bit like that. And then we do want to add those thicker lines there and there. And on the same sides here and here. And I'm going to do the same kind of idea in this section, where I'm going to choose a section where perhaps the smaller leaf will fit in, and then the larger leaf will be there. And yep, you did see me sort of like realise I was drawing the aura really, and stop and fill the leaf in before I did the rest. I sometimes do that. It makes sense sometimes. And again, we're going to pop the line weight in this kind of direction. That looks almost like we've got a glass window there, which is fun. So I'd happily fill all of these sections in with this, but I do think it would be quite interesting to fill them with other things. So with Hollibaugh, the Kwazeela is a lot like, in many ways, flax, which is what I'm drawing here. But we're using 2 leaves paired and Artwyrd. I am just going to fill this in with flex, however the flexes fall. So I'm putting some really big ones in to start with. And then I can add smaller ones to decrease the size of the spaces between them. If they go underneath the Hollibaugh, that helps to kind of give us that feeling of the Hollibaugh is above this. The black helps as well. I think I'll just leave that all black there. Could have fitted another one in, but I just think that will be just fine and dandy. Okay, nearly done that. Now I could leave the outside parts here exactly as they, or the flexes exactly as they are. But what I think I'll do is I'll use that my O1 pen, and I'm going to put a smaller version inside. I love to use different pen widths when I draw often, because that variation of line width really is what helps to bring drawings to life. Don't do this often enough really. I'm beginning to do it more in many ways. But you may notice that I prefer a much bolder line to draw with anyway. Then I do tend to draw on pieces of paper that are much bigger than the traditional Zentangle tiles. So we've got flux, and you can see there's a kinship between them. Except here we've got like flux shapes paired, and here they're all singly. Other patterns, you can fill these in with anything, but if I'm filling them in with leaves and leafy shapes, well, I'm going to fill this one in with leaves that have got 3 lobes to them. Which will make me quite happy, because I do like three-lobed leaves. And I'm just going to pop one in there, partial one. And again, for consistency with all the others, I'm going to fill the background with black. Because I can. Got a feeling this is going to be a longer than usual video. I'll try to remember to look at timestamps for you of where different patterns start, so that if you're only interested in some, you can look at those and skip ahead or whatever. Okay, so I've got those there. Oh, was I off camera? I hope I wasn't. Okay, I'm sure you'll soon tell me if I was. And I apologise if I did. That space is tiny there, so I'm just going to fill it with some black. This one is also quite tiny, but I'm still going to fill it in, but I think I'm going to use an angular variation of tipple, where I start with a big circle, circle-ish kind of shape, roundish shape. And then I get decreasingly small, or increasingly small, smaller and smaller ones round it, so it gives a feeling of dimension. So whether you missed that completely, didn't you? Right, let me zoom out because I'm zoomed too far in. I've got some little spaces here that I'm going to do the same to. So I'm going to start here with a series of largish ones that kind of define the area where I want a highlight to be. And then I'm going to fill in with small around it, around that original line of roundish shapes. They weren't all that round. With smaller and slightly smaller and even smaller circles towards the edges to give a natural kind of shadow. I'm using the density of ink and size just to create that sense of dimension or a volume of curving space. So hopefully that is visible. So I'll do that with all of these, I think, because they're a bit small to pop much else into, in my opinion. With a very fine pen, of course I could, but most of my work here today has been done with this pen, and so to be consistent, I'm going to use this pen for drawing the main part of patterns and finer pens for adding the details, because that's how it works. There we go, so we've got those going on there. Okay, here I think I might just do perhaps I'm going to do flux in here as well, and have it as if it's, oh, I really went outside that line, it's okay though, as if it is finding its way underneath to these ones here. So that would make some kind of sense. And again, I'll use my finer pen here just to add these details like so. So that's quite nice. Oh, I didn't add any details to the triple leaves because I do love shapes like this. And for these, I'm going to do some very simple lines with dots on. So the dots are close to the top of each of the lobes of these leaves. Excuse me. and they all sort of meet back together at the same point at the base. So here I'm still going to put the dots on, even though we haven't got quite to the end of the lobes. But I like that. And colour will help to bring dimension out with those. Okay, so we've got that done. Oh. All right, just a couple more. Well, I haven't done any muka, which is a surprise. But let's see what we can do with some muka. And with muka, I am going to spiral these around. And I don't mind them overlapping at the bottom here, in fact. Let's do them that way. And then I can do one here as well. So I've got a triangular arrangement of them, which echoes the shape of this space quite nicely. Here and here I've got these lovely spaces, so I'm going to squash some orbs inside. Just fill around those in with black, just to help them stand out. There's not a space here for that, so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm also going to go along this line to make it that little bit darker. And then we can add more mukas in. And I'm having them overlap, just like that. And then I can go here and have this one overlap. Going back to that one. And here having this one. Well, it hasn't overlapped. It could have, but it didn't. It didn't want to. It wanted to stand on its own. So that's fine. So I'm just filling those little spaces where they were. This one was a bit of a messy line, and I've most probably made it worse. But let's have a look and go back this way. So I'm just adding spirals where I can and completing them down here. And we're going to get to a point like here most probably where I don't really know how that would fit in, but it's fitted in like that, so that's fine. And I've got this space in the middle, and I'm just going to fill this in because I'm not sure how I'd fit a spiral in there, so if in doubt, fill it with black or aura or some other filling pattern, but black is de rigueur for today. So that's an interesting one. But I'm also going to do some that will be quite large and perhaps the more usual way of using muka to fill spaces in. Not that there is a usual way, I hasten to add. So that works nicely. Do I want to put beads in? No, I'm going to put black space. Fill these in with black, which I've started to do, but let's see. Oh look, that space is too small there for anything, so I'm just, well, I could have filled it in with tipple, but I'm not going to. I've decided that I don't want to. I'm going to have it just plain black. So I've got 2 spaces left to fill in. Okay, so this is very triangular, and I'm going to make use of that to create a kind of ivy leaf. And this is one of the Tripoli fragments, and we're creating almost like little furls there. But instead of having a little furl, oh no, I'm going to aura because I can. But on this side, I think I may pop in a little black stem and aura around it, like so. And then these, I can have black in this last bit. So that looks very much like a leaf shape, doesn't it? So I'm going to add three points like that. So a bit of a different kind of leaf. And here, there was what was the name of the pattern earlier on in this, in the challenge? What was it? Tag. T-A-G-H, which is another Zentangle pattern. But it's very leaf-like, where you start with a seed and you draw an aura around it. Then you start with a seed point and you draw another aura line around it. It's very similar to flux in some ways. It does depend what kind of shape you draw as an aura and the seed shape you use. I'm just using a simple kind of almost rounded ended leaf. But I should be able to mostly fill this in with that pattern without much black space or black, which would be interesting. As I go and fill that in with black. Okay, right. That's what we're doing, is it? Perhaps not. Perhaps just that one. It's the unique one in the pile, which is fine because they're all unique in their way, like we're all unique. So there we are. I want to leave these gaps so I can add some black for consistency across these. And we will. There we go, we got some blacks in here and there. And also, oh gosh, I'm really making a right pig's ear of all of this addition of colour. So I've got all of this here. And that is days 24, which is today. So day 24. Hollibaugh. As my letters get bigger and bigger as I write, but you get the idea. So that's day 24. And day 25. Kwazeela. I'm going to check on the spelling. Kwazeela, there's two E's here. And a totally different A, because that's what I do. And the last thing I'm going to do is somewhere here. It's probably here. That'll do fine. Put a little something sticking out with my initials in. So there's day 24, 25, just drawn in ink, no colour added. I've got black to finish off there. And actually, I've got space here to fit another one of these in, haven't I? So that cuts down the amount of black I need to do, so I'll do that very quickly. And then you can see it before I add any colour to it. I am going to use alcohol markers. I may use colour, I may use greys. But I am likely to leave the Hollibaugh planks as they are. And I may put gold or silver or some other colour dot in the sky, in the night sky, the black, to make it look like night sky. But I'm not really sure yet. So there we have it. Days 24, 25. So have fun with this. I've tried to fill in my sections with leafy patterns. Even this one has ended up leafy, even though it's not strictly, it's a trefoil shape. It's often seen in Gothic architecture and medieval manuscripts, amongst other things. Most probably goes back before then, actually. And different kinds of leaves, different kinds of shapes to keep that leafy pattern going. I could have filled it all in with a Kwazeela, but Kwazeela was one of the patterns today, Hollibaugh was the other. And I've chosen to fill the spaces that Hollibaugh makes with pattern rather than filling the Hollibaugh planks with pattern. That's why I left the ends open. And I will add shadow to bring out how they overlap one another and that depth and dimension. But I'll do that off camera because it'll take me a while and it'll keep me occupied while this is all processing. So once again, thank you so much for joining me. I really, really hope you did enjoy this and that you'll give all of these things a go. And I hope to see you again sometime soon. Not Tuesday the 25th, probably Wednesday, but not Thursday. It's a crazy week for me. All right, so you take care now and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Oh, find time to be creative. Ta-ra. Hoil.